Hi everybody and welcome to another Dan Live Q&A. I'm here today, I'm really pleased to be here today with Thomas Lethierry, who is the Global President of Visium. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Pleasure.
We're going to be talking about Cannes Lions, the Festival of Creativity, which kicks off just next week. Visium is actually going to be holding an event in the Dan Beach House. And essentially it's a startup event. So they'll be showcasing their startup engagement program called Spark, where basically there'll be a Dragon's Den style kind of event featuring a few startups who will try and win over the panel of judges, which will feature David Shing, so he's the AOL's digital prophet, Tia Castagno, who is the global head of innovation at Visium, and also Lucy Hockings, who is the BBC World News reporter. So it's going to be a really exciting event. We're actually going to be Facebook live streaming that event on our global Facebook page, and we'll be inviting you to be part of that conversation and to vote for your favourite pitch. So do get involved, do sign up to the event and tune in. It's going to be really great. Just today, I suppose, for the Dan Live Q&A, we're going to be talking more about what to expect more widely at Cannes, what are the kind of key trends we'll be looking out for, and as well as kind of changing nature of that landscape in the industry, featuring more data and consumer insights. So Visium have also developed their unique startup program Spark, which will be featuring in this event at the Dan Beach House, so it'd be great to hear more about that. So thank you, Thomas, for joining us.
Pleasure.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that event at Cannes Lions next week?
So we've got a number of things lined up for Cannes, but of course the Spark event is a key one. We've been connecting, I think, in a quite privileged way with startup and the startup community in the past years, and Spark is exactly about that. We've actually used startups to design solutions to crack business challenges for clients in the past. I remember, for example, we used a technology here in the UK that we embraced for clients like ABI or Heinz, where we actually used the weather changes to push digital out of home. So when the weather was good for cider, and when the weather was cold for soup, for example. And so these ideas were coming from the Spark initiative. We have a series of stakeholders in our organizations, our people, our clients, our shareholders, but we need to be closer to society. And this idea in Cannes with Spark is actually to see how startup communities and technology can make the digital revolution closer to society and improve society. We've seen some of the big players, such as Facebook, create the geolocalization and the safety check, which is typically an example of how the digital revolution can get closer to society. We're interested to see how startup can have a point of view and bring solutions in that. So the purpose of that Spark event in Cannes is exactly around that. We have 3 startups lined up, and there'll be people, as you said, from AOL and the BBC, but also clients. A person from Fox, Maggie from Fox will be joining, and Ben Mulder from Burberry will be joining the panel as well, and I'll be on that with Tia, and we'll be looking at those 3 startups and trying to see how can they contribute to make the digital revolution beneficial and closer to society. That's the project.
Fantastic. It's a really exciting event, so I do encourage you all to sign up to that Facebook event so that you get the reminder on the day for the Facebook Live broadcast. It's going to be really exciting. And if you do have any other questions for Thomas on Cannes and some of the wider trends we're expecting to see this year, then do send them through. We'll do our best to answer them for you later on. So Thomas, do you want to tell us a little bit more around what that brief for the startups actually entails?
Well, the brief is about what I've described. How can the digital revolution and technology and data can be beneficial to society? I think we've seen a transformation in the way we interact with brands and the role of media in that. But we've got, outside just our media world and the digital world, we've seen a very big moment of disruption in the last 5 to 10 years, and digital being at the heart of that. How we had a 20th century that was basically a century based around lines, political lines and educational lines, and for us, the media industry, editorial lines, and our job as media agencies was to interrupt those lines to place advertising. And now we move in a world where people create their own lines of content, and they engage with brands on their own terms. And we see that revolution creating massive amounts of wealth and value for the media and for the industry and for brands. But society also need to leverage that revolution in its own way. And what we think is we need to take a part of that, we need to promote that. And so the idea of this specific Spark event is to brief startups and see how can they create solutions and opportunities to bring that revolution closer to society and make it beneficial to society.
Brilliant. And how do you see this event and the Spark programme, I suppose, more widely? How do you see it driving real business benefits for our clients?
Now, as I said, for the for the ABI or the Heinz examples, these startups, when they bring solutions, they actually enable to crack business challenges. We work for our clients' most valued assets, which are their brands. But the briefs that we get today are no longer, and everybody knows that, about awareness or preference or intention to purchase. They're really about business. How can we leverage media to create more transactions, to improve share of markets, to accelerate business growth? And the brief we have in the Spark program is always, how can startup create technology breaks or data solution that will help address business challenges? That's really at the heart of it.
Brilliant. For those of you who have just joined us, we're here today with Thomas Leterrier, who is the Global President of Visium. We're talking about what to expect at Cannes Lions this year, so if you do have any questions for Thomas, then do send them through. Similarly, do sign up for listening in on that event on Facebook Live next week, when there will be a live Spark pitching event in Cannes. It's going to be a really exciting event, so do tune in for that. So, obviously, creativity remains at the core of Cannes Lions, as it does every year. Where do you see the real business value of creativity playing?
Well, I think we used to think about creativity as advertising creativity, and so today creativity is much broader than advertising creativity. It's the way we think about the communication plan, the way we think about an ecosystem. How do we fuel that ecosystem with the right content? And it can be a piece of creativity through advertising, but it's also the creativity of how do we leverage media, how do we engage with consumers. And I think Cannes used to be the festival of advertising creativity, and it's then, I think in the recent years, became the festival of advertising and media creativity, and I was making those quotes last year saying it's becoming the festival of media. And if you happen to go to Cannes, you see media is really dominating the scene. And I think, of course, the future of the industry is about data, and how every point of contact with media can become a point of collection of data, understanding of insights, and progressively more bespoke, more personal, more relevant communication to consumers. So I think as we go forward, the Festival of Cannes will become the festival of advertising, creativity, media, and certainly data. I think that's what we can expect. And I think we've got, as a communication media group, we've got a great role to play in that.
Brilliant. And we saw that Visium Global recently launched their Trends video series. And one of those episodes is focused on data and the monetization of consumers' data. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, basically, the consumers are every day more aware to the fact that when they connect with a digital platform, with a brand, through an app, and every point of media is becoming a point of collection of data. And I like to tell that story that at the beginning of this year, the FM radio in Norway is on its way out of the country. And by the end of 2017, Norway will have moved the entire radio in the country, national-wise, out of the FM broadcast system into digital system. So when people say, is that online or is that online or offline? Is it digital or non-digital? Is actually completely irrelevant. All media is progressively moving towards a digital space, and such a traditional media in a country like Norway becoming full digital is just paving the way to where all of media is going. So consumers understand every time they will interact with media will be a point of connection with them and collection of data. and they understand the value that there is in the data that is being collected by agencies and brands. And as they understand the value, and as we know consumers want to transact and interact on their own terms, they will actually understand there is a monetization that is possible made out of this data. So we need to understand that, and we need to use that data in a very transparent and respectful way, because in the end, all of this data is collected from consumer behavior, and then so we need to use that data in compliance with how they expect us to use the data, and in a completely transparent way.
Yeah.
So yes, I believe progressively consumers will take ownership of that data and want to monetize it, absolutely.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll probably see data and the safety of consumer data is trending quite a lot at Cannes this year, I imagine.
I think it's beyond trending. It's a fundamental element of anything that we do with data. These are people data, consumer data, and we have to respect all of the legal framework and the way this data has been provided to the industry and use it on the terms of the consumers who have provided it. It will increase the relevance, and even beyond the relevance, the personalization that we can do of marketing programs. And so the consumers will see a benefit in that, because they will interact with brands where it's useful, where it's interesting, where it's insightful. But we also have to understand we need to ask permission every time we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you do have any other questions for Thomas around data or the wider trends you're probably going to be seeing this year at Cannes, do send them through. We'll do our best to answer those for you. And similarly, do check out that video series by Visium. There is a link in our latest social posts, so do check those out. So in terms of the landscape, the changing landscape at Cannes, I think aside from creativity and data, talent is really high on everyone's agenda. So how do you see that kind of changing in this new era of entrepreneurship and machine learning and data? How do you harness that new generation of talent?
So I think we've got a series of things in that space. The first one is, how do we identify and promote the talents inside the organization? Because we've got a vast amount of people now in the group, and amongst them a very large amount of talents, and we need to promote those talents, grow them, nurture them. And I think Route 500 is the program that we've designed at Dentsu Aegis Network to actually identify those talents and offer them a road to grow and opportunities to move into leadership positions and evolve, and also get the training that they need. The other proposition that we make as an organization is Horizon. We understand there are talents in parts of the business, either business units or geographies, and we need to organize the right career path for these people. So Horizon is mapping that, not only vertical solutions for people, but also lateral movements from one side of the business to another, and making sure that we've got the right fluidity. I think we talk a lot about the fact that the business belongs to the next generation, so we have to make sure that we source talents very early, and we have the right connections with school and institutions to actually dig talents of tomorrow where they are today. And we also need to put in place different ways to design organization and to design decision process. We come from a world where organizations were pyramids, and the leadership was making decisions, and it was cascading, these decisions were cascading throughout the organization. We move into a world where we need to move much faster, where the key element of success is speed. And so we need to create and design organizations where the loops of decisions are much smaller and also much more fit for what we need to deliver to clients, but also with the appetite and the energy and the ambition of that new generation. I think these are some of the driving forces of our talent thinking.
Absolutely. And I see that a few of you have sent some questions through, so thank you very much for those. And before I get round to the questions, there's one last question I wanted to ask around the vision of Visium, which is about accelerating business results. How has that evolved or changed over the past few years?
I think we're refining it day in and day out. But what we really realise, and that's been the case as we talk to clients throughout their briefs, whether it's IKEA, to whom we've been talking a lot in the end of 2016, 2017, but also clients like BMW or clients like ABI or Burger King, their brief is really about solving business challenges and how can they leverage the millions that they invest in what we still call media, but it's much broader than that. It's communication in the wide sense. How do those millions that they invest actually have a return on the investment and accelerate their business growth? And I think the more we move forward and the more we progress, the more we understand the responsibility and the accountability that we need to have as an agency to be able to shape and design business solving ideas that are bold, that are usually single ideas, that we sometimes need to bring startups or technology or data partners into to build. So they're not just built here, they are usually co-constructed. But it's really about designing solutions that address business challenges and accelerate business growth. That's really where we're going and what we believe is right for us.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thank you for your questions that are coming through. We've got a few here. So, Thomas, which talk at Cannes Lions are you most looking forward to?
I think in general we've got leadership talks that for me tend to be the most interesting ones. I remember, I think a couple of years ago, there was a debate between the chairman of the Sky cycling team was debating with Jerry. It was moderated by a journalist, and they were talking about leadership. And I still have that pretty fresh in my memory, although it was 2 or 3 years ago. And they were talking about the fact that in any business, and especially true, I think, for Sky, the Sky cycling team, but also for us as an organization, how progress is much more important than perfection. And that's one line that I've kept from that discussion that has kept on inspiring me, as no one's perfect, and perfection is almost antagonistic to human beings. So it's not about searching perfection in the way you cycle and the way you drive a team, but it's about progressing day in and day out. There was also this idea about focus and be ready to sacrifice and get rid of what is not beneficial to the whole team. So this idea of collaboration and this idea of prioritization, that was really important as the debate was going on. So to your point, I think for me what I'm most looking forward to is the inspiring leaders of the industry who come and debate on stage. That's usually what's most interesting.
Brilliant. Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty of that this year.
I'm sure, yeah.
So we've got another one through. Thank you, Rekha, for that. Charlotte asks, what is a good example of tech startups benefiting societies?
Well, I gave that example. I think is the most obvious one is how Facebook have created the safety check. It's an obvious one. It's very scalable. It goes really fast. It's been activated in a number of cases. So I think that's typically a good example. Yeah. A good illustration.
Yeah, definitely. We've got another one through from Max. How has Cannes changed since you've been going there every year?
Well, I think it's simple. It used to be the Festival of Advertising, and I think advertisers created that festival because of the Festival of Cinema of Cannes that happens in June, in May, and so the advertising industry thought it would be great because we would all like to be cinema makers to actually have our own festival to present advertising in Cannes. And since I joined, it's moved from being the festival of 30-second ads to become the Festival of Media, and as we go forward, it will be the Festival of Media and the Festival of Data, I'm sure.
Yeah, brilliant. And we've got another one through from Max. If you were to give any advice to a Cannes first-timer, what would it be? How do you tackle Cannes?
I think don't expect a lot of fun. To me, Cannes is not fun. Cannes is really interesting. Cannes is really insightful. Cannes is the opportunity to connect with very senior leaders in our organization and in the industry in general. We invest significant amount of time and resource and money into the event. We expect a lot out of it. So for a first timer, I think it's this idea that Cannes isn't about the French Riviera, and being French, I know how the French Riviera can be. It's really about getting at the heart of the industry and putting the finger on the media industry pulse. And that's really interesting.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much to everyone who sent through your questions, and sorry to those who we couldn't get around to today. I've got a couple of last questions I wanted to finish on. So, what do you expect to see, I suppose, trending, but what do you think is going to be one of the hot topics at Cannes next week?
I think expect the unexpected, as I always say, but the big thing is going to be data. The industry is reshaping itself around data. It's the new currency for business. It leads to a number of questions about transparency and safety, and we've talked a little bit about that, so there's plenty of reservation. There is a big space ahead of us on how do we shape our business around data, but it's clearly going to be the core theme for the industry and for the festival.
Yeah, and what are you personally most looking forward to getting out of Cannes next week?
If you cut me in half, you'd find client relationship. So for me, it's about connecting with our clients. It's about engaging with them at a senior level. It's about understanding their priorities, their challenges, and understanding how Visium as a network, as an agency, can do better, can do more, can be closer to our clients. That's really my agenda.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Thomas. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks again to those who have tuned in. Do remember to tune in at the end of July when we'll be speaking to Will Swain, the Global President of CARA. We'll be talking about some of the outputs from Cannes, as well as client leadership. In the meantime, do sign up for that event to basically tune in live to the Spark event next week at Cannes, as well as some of the global trends videos that Visium have been producing. There is a link in our latest social post. That's it for now. Thank you very much for tuning in, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.